Hello, God bless you, my brothers and sisters. This is Bishop Canyon. I want to talk to you today from the title, You Can't Do Right with the Wrong Thing on Your Mind. Did you know that the enemy is after your mind because he knows that he cannot get you to fall until your mind gets involved? When you sin, you do so because your mind got involved through the power of meditation. Brothers and sisters, it all starts in your mind. The sins you commit with your body have already been done in your mind. There are two choices connected to one sin. The choice to sin in your heart or your mind, and then the choice to sin with your body. Jesus said, "You have heard that it was said by them of old time, that thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, whosoever looks on a woman to lust after her has already committed sin in his heart." Before you sin with your body, you crossed God's boundary in your mind. You see, this boundary is not restricted to the physical act, but also includes the thoughts of the act in the heart. The enemy wants you to entertain what he is offering to the point of mental participation. The mind must be engaged. Your mind must be engaged in thoughts that promote the act. You don't commit sexual sins with amazing grace on your mind because those thoughts do not promote the act. You are depressed because of your thoughts. You are angry because of your thoughts. You have low self-esteem because you have thought yourself into that state. You are drawn away by your own thinking. James said in James, the first chapter, verses 13 through 15, he says, "Let no man say when he is tempted that he is tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempts he any man." But then he says, every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin. And when sin is finished, it brings forth death. Now, James says we are tempted when we are drawn away of our own lust. Now, there are different degrees of lust or desire. And the greater the desire or the greater the lust, the more intense the temptation to cross God's boundary. And your desire to do wrong grows as you feed it, because whatever you feed will grow and whatever you starve will die. And it will probably stay dead until you give it resurrection power by feeding it again. Now you starve your desires by not allowing your meditations or your thoughts to feed them. The less you feed them, the weaker they become. James also says now, when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin. One definition of conceived is to take into your mind by forming an image of something. When you allow the desire to produce mental imagery, it brings sin forth from the mind to the body, from contemplation to manifestation. When a child is conceived in the womb of its mother, it grows until the womb can no longer contain it. Then the child is born. Lust is conceived when desire and imagination come together in the womb of the mind and grow until the mind can no longer contain it, and then sin is born. Sin in the heart is sin unborn. A baby in the womb does not negate the fact of its existence. It's no less a baby because it's in the womb, but we call it a fetus. Now, when the baby is born, it leaves the womb and enters the world. Just as a fetus in the womb is no less a baby, sin in the heart is no less sin. Sin in the heart is just a phrase of location telling us the place of origin. The heart is where the problem is. Your heart, my heart, is where the problem is. Sin is sin, whether it's done in the heart, which is spiritual, or the body, which is physical. But now you might say, if what I have done in my heart is sin, well, then I may as well go ahead and commit the act physically. Listen, it's one thing to think about robbing a bank, but it's quite another to rob it. Now, while both of them are wrong, there are irreversible consequences once you physically commit the act. When you commit the act, you set a law in motion, the law of sowing and reaping. So basically, dealing with sin in the heart can avert some serious consequences. In 2 Samuel, the 13th chapter, we read that Amnon raped his half-sister Tamar, and his brother Absalom hated him for it. The Bible teaches us that Absalom said nothing good or bad about Amnon, but in his heart, he created a video of his brother's death, and he replayed that video for 2 years. And when the time was right, he had Amnon killed. In the heart, though, of Absalom, Amnon was dead 2 years earlier. Absalom's sin began in his heart, and because he did not abort it, he gave birth to what was already there. You see, your problem is what's there. The problem is much deeper than what you do. It goes to the heart from which it comes. David's prayer was, create in me a clean heart. And his prayer must be ours as well. In Genesis 6 and 5 it reads, and God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of his thoughts, of the thoughts of his heart rather, was only evil continually. Now, one definition of imagination is a mental picture that you form of something that's not present to the senses. The enemy wants you to use your imagination to create a mental picture of yourself in the act of sin. He wants you to have your own private video. He says to you, look at this, think on this, and agree with me that this is worth having or doing. The enemy wants your thoughts to feed your imagination and fuel your desire to the point of no return. Your flesh is the instrument of your mind, so it's important that the right thing be on your mind. You can't do right with the wrong thing on your mind. Get control of your mind. God bless you.